Hey, I'm Jonathan Strauss. I'm the founder of Skateboard Supercross or SBSX. Uh, for me, skateboarding has definitely been a journey. For many others as well, it definitely climbs in under your skin, becomes a part of you. You live, you eat, you breathe, you sleep skateboarding, and that's what gives you the ride. That's what gives you the stoke to really continue to push forward. In 2008, when the economy crashed, wakeboarding, which was a luxury type sport, uh, on the sponsorship side and with the event that we were producing back then, it kind of dropped off a bit. So I looked to other things and started to do some research, and I found a longboard actually, and I fell in love at first sight. I got on it. It was definitely much easier than what I had remembered in terms of skateboarding. It was definitely a nice ride. I picked up to it and started enjoying just a daily commute on it. And that led me to create the first ever skateboard marathon. And so it was a 26-mile race on skateboards. When I first talked to people, they said kids don't even skate to the park. But here we were. I fell in love because longboarding and skateboarding. Longboarding was changing what skateboarding was. It was really making people think of new types of designs, new types of wheels, improve your bearings, improve your trucks, all these different performance enhancing type things. And from coming from a performance driven sport like swimming and like wakeboarding, it was really awesome for me to see this in skateboarding. So I took on to that, and fast forward a few years, and more and more the industry brands, I started to notice they were starting to make their boards shorter, change back the tech, get kids doing many more tricks on these boards, and it started to become more like the traditional form of skateboarding, and that's where I really started to see a great opportunity for people, because I saw the feelings that it gave me. I mean, you get on a skateboard and you break through this time of being scared or being fearful, and you break through where nothing can stop you anymore. The passion that drives in skateboarding is is far more intense than many other sports that I've seen. Skateboarding more than any other action sport, because if you think about it, that adrenaline, that stoke, that really improvement in your confidence and your self-esteem level, the creativity that everybody talks about. Yeah, you can find it when you go mountain climbing. You can get it when you're snowboarding, jumping out of a helicopter, when you're skydiving. You get those same feelings. The difference is when you skateboard, and even if you just skate on the street, you can find that feeling and that adrenaline. And that's why skateboarding is so powerful from all levels, whether it's street skateboarding, long distance skateboarding, downhilling, all these things. It's just really the most accessible of all the action sports. So it's the way that we can touch the most amount of people and give them those feelings and that sense of confidence. Nothing can pay for the feelings you achieve by getting on a skateboard. As opposed to these other sports, the other action sports, you've got quite a bit of a barrier to entry. You need to be able to buy yourself a lift ticket at the mountain. You need to be able to get to the mountain. That feeling that you get when you skateboard is unmatched with any other, because it is so accessible. The smile on the face that you get from these kids when you give them some new gear or something that they've never been able to touch or feel or be on, and you give them that small little helping hand, it goes so far. With the marathon, it touched a lot of lives. It created things. Then we created a league of a bunch of different race disciplines and styles and lengths called Skate IDSA. And with that, we've touched hundreds of thousands of people. I saw that the league was growing, and we had much more participation, and we had many more people getting involved and being a part of it. But there was one flaw: is we would have these events worldwide in different cities, different countries. We would have these events, and they would happen one time a year. And yes, the show would come in, and all the best skaters or long distance skaters from all over would come. The longboarders would participate, skateboarders would try to beat longboards, and and but it would happen one time a year in that community, and then the show would leave, and nothing would happen again for a whole entire year in that same city. So I started to think of ways that we could grow the sport and create a longer term presence. So I was lucky enough to have met a guy named Claudio Caluri from the downhill mountain biking scene, a gentleman that founded Velo Solutions, a pump track building company, but a company that pioneered in paving the pump tracks. And so when I looked at his original builds, I said, wow, this is really amazing. This could actually work for longboards or for really any wheelbase. And that was the key ingredient that sparked my attention to pioneering the pump tracks in the US. A big problem with skate parks, and the skate parks were booming. There were many parks all around the country. As a matter of fact, there's more than 4,500 to date here in the US. With those parks came geometries, obviously, and a lot of the geometries work for the traditional skateboard deck, the pool boards and things like that, but they didn't really work for every single kind of longboard. And so the parks kind of marginalized just one group of skateboarders, and it wasn't welcoming to all of skateboarding. So I was fortunate enough to be able to help Claudio Caluri bring and establish a presence in the U.S. In terms of pump track construction. We built the first park in New York City, in Williamsburg, the most gentrifying neighborhood in the country, probably one of the most sought after neighborhoods, right on the water in Brooklyn. And we built a pump track that became an iconic space for everyone around the world that wanted to come and see it. At this pump track over the years, we started to see that actually it was a great community space, a great space where not only skaters could congregate, but longboarders could come, bikers could come, scooters could participate. And the beauty there was a lot of them ended up wanting to transition to skateboarding. When we built these parks and it slowly grew and started to infect the rest of the US with the want or the need for a pump track type park in their location, it really turned me on to not only wanting to ride longboards in these pump track parks, but also I started to see the value and expand to give traditional skateboarding a try again. So I started to see it and started to see that the harder wheels would go faster, the shorter wheelbase might be better. But there were different styles of riding and different ways to ride these parks that totally sparked my interest in figuring out ways to really educate the world and get more people on boards. Nowadays, a lot of the flow in parks and in traditional skate parks is changing and making it seem like it's a very flowing course. They're very comparable with harder obstacles, obviously, than what pump tracks have. And they actually are a great, now more advanced session where kids don't just have to figure out on their own how to drop in on a quarter pipe. They've got the experience of flowing fast and when they've had the experience on a pump track. So we started developing some good educational curriculums and models to be able to help kids get from a zero to hero type mentality, from beginner, never having had the access to a skateboard at all, never having the ability to have felt what it is to roll or fly, and getting them to a point where they're just having so much fun rolling through, making turns, riding switch, different things that really I started to see the connectivity and the mental awareness that kids started developing, the creativity that stemmed from it, the confidence that kids that would run through our program would get. Now we had to help kids not only accomplish the pump track, but what could they do further? They could definitely continue to just get faster and faster on the pump track, but how could they create new tricks? How could they transition and feel a part of traditional style skate parks? And that's when China happened. I was sitting at a family dinner and I was supposed to take a trip because one of the manufacturers in the industry had invited me to come see the factory in China. At this family dinner, my cousin, he had experience, about 20 years of experience in China. And he said, wait a minute, if you're going to China, you're not going alone, are you? And I was like, well, I am going alone. I'm just going to visit a couple factories and see what there is, see if there's any opportunities there. He's like, well, if you're going to go to China, you're going to go with my most trustworthy person that has always had my back in China. So I was like, okay, great. So, long story short, I boarded the plane, and Ika, now very near and dear to my heart, met me right off the airplane. We started to chat and we started to talk, and he's like, listen, your projects and what you've done is very impressive. It's a very good thing, but we have to be very careful, and we have to listen to everything people say, because when you start talking about it here in China, it could either go the wrong way. We have to be very prepared and very willing to negotiate something firm. And I took it with a grain of salt, and I said, Ika, I'm not here to sign any paperwork or do anything. I just want to experience and have a look at what China has to offer. So we had several meetings and several people that I looked at, and it was kind of outlandish to even be in a conversation with many of the people, because when you want something skateboarding oriented and when you want to be a part of something skateboarding, it has to be very organic. It has to be very grassroots. If not, it's not natural, and it won't be sustainable long term. And I learned this kind of the hard way when we first started our events. After my excursion through China, on the way back to the airport, after about 10 days of spending time with Ika, he asked me if I thought that my concept, or my building a park and creating my whole educational curriculum and all of that, if it would be worthwhile to try it in a school. Here Ika mentioned in a school, and I said, well, but where are we going to find a school? And so he mentioned to me that his family owns a school in Ningbo, China, and he thinks that the principal that they've hired at the school would embrace it and like the concept if we wanted to create a presence in China. At that moment, my eyes lit up, and I said, Ika, this would be incredible. If I come back to China in the next year, I'll make sure that I come and visit the school. And so this was June of 2018, and I got back to Miami. And at that point, once I was back, I got back to working. We were running an awesome summer camp in Miami, and that was the first edition of the SBSX Action Sports Camp. The phone rang, and it was my dad, actually, and my dad said, listen, Joner, I've just been invited to China to give a conference. My dad is the ultimate swim coach. He's been teaching in South Florida forever. He was an Olympian, and he says, I'm going to China. I got invited, and I need you to come with me, because I don't know what China is, and you were just there, and will you just take a trip? And so I said, absolutely. I got on the plane. That was about October time frame, and I got on the plane, and I made a phone call to Ika, and I said, Ika, I'm actually going to be in Hangzhou, which is only 2 hours away from Ningbo, and I can escape the conference where I'm with my dad for a couple hours and go visit you at the school and take a tour. Here I was. I got on the car with Ika. We drove the 2 hours to Ningbo, and I fell in love with the Zhejiang school. It was pretty impressive. It reminded me of growing up in the high school environment, a beautiful quad that they have, beautiful entryway, but this was 10 times larger than the high school I went to. I mean, this had this huge soccer field, a basketball gym. It had quads. It had, for students to hang out, it had a huge 3-story cafeteria. It had everything you could imagine, like what every student would want in a high school. And they walked me to the back, and they said, how would a skate park and pump track look in this space? And it was a massive, like the size of 2 football fields. I was in awe, and I was like, it's beautiful, but I don't think you need such a big one. And they said, no, but this is China. We need to do everything big, and we have many students. My eyes lit up. I mean, I asked the question, how many students? And they said 2,000 students. And I was like, whoa, can we teach all of them how to skateboard? And they were like, well, yes, we'll integrate it into the curriculum here. And I was like, wow, don't we have to ask the government or what? And they're like, no, this is a private school. We say what gets taught, and we follow a standard curriculum, but we have time for PE, and PE is not part of the core curriculum. So I was super ecstatic. I showed a presentation of the different parks that I had built and the different things that I had done, and the whole faculty at the school really fell in love with it, and they said, we want this can be really awesome. And by end of February, only 4 months later than when I left, we were actually boots on the ground building this amazing park that any kid growing up skateboarding would have given both their legs and both their arms to be able to skate it. Every time I walk on that site, it's just awe inspiring that a school somewhere in this world has something that can take a kid from learning just basics of how to just push a skateboard to then riding on the pump track and then actually getting to drop in, ride in a bowl, ride a street course, all the different things that'll prepare them for both mentally, physically, and for those that really want to commit. I guess we have a program in place that can take them to high levels of competition. I always hate to say that because at the end of the day, skateboarding does so much more and has so many more platforms for kids other than that just Olympic platform that obviously is a great another step as to why this sport or this lifestyle can do so much for humanity. On this journey of skateboarding, I've really noticed how much it benefits both from a mindfulness perspective and it's got to have something to do with the flow and the when you get on a board, you instantly don't have time to really think of what your girlfriend told you or how your wife yelled at you or if you had a fight with your best friend. You really have to be in the here and now, living in the present moment. It's something that all these kids today with the access to their fingertips of everything that they can study or learn or what have you, they kind of forget to live in the here and now. They're always in multitasking and thinking of other things. But the beauty of skateboarding is it forces you to be in that here and now. And if you exit out of it for that one split second, well, that one split second could mean a pretty serious injury or a pretty serious fall and that automatically wakes you up. The power of being able to stay in that mindset and that flow is super impactful and super impressive for me as to why skateboarding is so important that we have to get it into so many more places around this world. I can tell you a lot of things about it. Every skateboarder can tell you a lot of things about how good it's been and how it's changed lives or how it's gotten people out of drugs or out of making wrong decisions. But the truth is about a year ago, we created a survey research at the school in Ningbo, having 2,000 students. About 880 participated in the study. Normally you do a study and you get like 2% participation. Here we got 40% of the children that had been taking classes upon entering into starting their skateboard classes and then exiting after the entire year. Here in this survey, we saw how it really, at a significant value, it increased self-confidence in many kids. Many of them had creativity. And if you look at it and you do a lot of the research, it's very impressive that a Chinese-born kid and obviously there were also Americans and international students at the school that took this, but it really opened up their minds. And in China, the study is super rigorous and they're always in their books and always in that. But even teachers at the school applauded us and gave recommendations and said how much it changed the focus line outside of skateboarding for these kids that were really enjoying it and picking it up. After seeing all this research and all this data and the firsthand experience of what's going on in Ningbo every day, it's time that we continue to educate the world as to how important skateboarding can be to increase people's self-confidence, increase motivation, increase creativity amongst all of our youth and people alike. It's never too late to pick up a board. It's never too late to learn how to skateboard, and it's never too late to get rid of that fear and find that stoke, which can take you to a much higher limit. It'll take you to push your limits to a much greater extent.